welcome to the third tutorial in the fourth series on drawing the full figure. In the previous tutorials, we had a look at the basic structure of the full figure in a couple of frontal stances and how to draw feet. In this and the following tutorials, we will expand on those stances and learn to clothe the figure. But before we do that, we're going to have a brief look at some theological aspects of the icon and what they mean for how we draw and paint icons. The icon has two elements, the form of the person depicted and the artistic stylistic element. This includes the measurements of the figures, the colours used, and the way that colour is built up, amongst other things. When most people think of icons, they usually think of the image of Christ or the saints or events depicted on a wooden panel or perhaps a mural. But this is not the actual icon, in Greek ikona. It is a depiction of the icon that is crafted using different techniques, materials and styles, what St. Photius the Great calls an ikonisma. The icon, according to the Church Fathers and ecumenical councils, is the form of the hypostasis or person, that is, their physical characteristics, and it exists whether or not it has been depicted by artistic means. This form cannot change because each individual person is unique. Christ was a specific person with specific characteristics, which is why when we see an icon of Christ or a saint, we immediately recognize who it is, and that recognizability is extremely important. These forms, icons, are what have been passed on by tradition and belong to the Church. If we look at icons of Christ throughout the ages, they are immediately recognizable even if the artistic style varies. This is also the reason why it is wrong to depict Christ or the Theotokos as black, Chinese, or Native American, for example, because they were specific persons of a specific race. They are not some kind of general idea of humanity. Human nature is found in specific hypostases. Icons have elements that are fixed and cannot be altered, and others that are variable, and it is important to distinguish between the two. Let's take the example of the icon of Christ that we're going to draw in this tutorial. The most important fixed element is the form, the physical characteristics of Christ. It must also bear his name. The form and the name are what constitute the icon, according to the Fathers. It is like a modern identity card that bears the person's photograph and name to identify them. Then there are certain peripheral, conventional elements that are added to the form that are also fixed. In the case of Christ, these are the ancient Greek garments he's wearing, the Gospel book, his hand in the blessing gesture, and the halo with a cross and inscription. Although Christ didn't dress like an ancient Greek, the Church chose to depict him in this manner of the ancient philosophers to show the idolaters and philosophers that he is the true wisdom. Likewise, the prophets, apostles, and evangelists wear the same garments, indicating that they received their wisdom from the true wisdom. Christ also wears a halo. The halo originates from Persian art, where it was used to distinguish an important person or deity. The Romans adopted the use of the halo along with the worship of the emperor. It was from the Romans that Christianity adopted it, using it to distinguish important persons, in particular Christ and the saints. There is nothing scandalous about using elements from so-called pagan art. They were part of the common visual code of the time that everyone understood. Just as the Church Fathers used the philosophical language of the time and imbued it with new meaning, so the Church used the visual language of the time to be understood. There are no patristic references that the halo was symbolic of the uncreated light. This is a modern interpretation that appeared in the 20th century. Christ wears the halo with a cross with the inscription or on, the being, to distinguish him from every other saint, and to signify that he is God and that through the cross he has destroyed death by his resurrection. So these are the fixed elements of the icon of Christ, his form, and the peripheral conventional elements that are added to the form. The task of the iconographer is to transfer the form icon and the peripheral elements into material using artistic means. These artistic means are what are variable, which is why throughout the history of Byzantine iconography we see such a variety of styles and different manners of building up color, etc., from one period of school to another. According to the theology of the Seventh Ecumenical Council, it is the form icon that belongs to the Church. The art belongs to the painter. This is why the Church never made any definitions or canons about the style of icons, but the Byzantine system developed as the most suitable for expressing the theology and purpose of the icon. That is to bring the persons depicted off the painting surface and into the same time and space as the viewer, bringing them into a relationship, and visually expressing what we experience in the Divine Liturgy. This stylistic variability allows the iconography a degree of freedom when depicting the peripheral fixed elements of the icon. If we look at the garments of Christ, for example, in different icons, we will see that although he's wearing the same type of garments, each iconographer has drawn those garments and the folds in a different manner. This manner is not random though, and it requires an understanding of how line and rhythm work to create the sense of flow and harmony, and also to project the icon off the surface and out towards the viewer. So with this in mind, let us see how we can dress the figure of Christ.